What is the weirdest Tinder date that you've been on? Went on a date with this cute girl. We talked about an hour and she felt more fascinated when I brought up my cats. She was very eager to meet them, so we proceeded to go to my place. Spent few hours just playing with my cats. She was about to leave, and before she put her shoes on to go, she says to me, "Oh, I forgot something," and went to grab my youngest kitten, during the time 4 months old, and picked him up and wanted to walk out with him. I stopped her and told her what was she doing. To her reply, "I thought you let me adopted him." Like girl for LOL. Guy offered me a bag of marijuana at the beginning of the date, then spent the rest of the evening talking about molecules and energies and how the government is trying to give us cancer because of something in the lights we use. Some weird pseudoscientific stuff. I just nodded along and ate my food. He didn't eat anything because he fasts 23 hours a day. The best part was that the woman at the table next to us could hear our conversation and we exchanged knowing looks, where her eyes said "WTF is up with this guy?" and mine said "I know." He had a bag of weed but fasted 23 hours a day and wasn't hungry. Wire. Met a guy on Tinder. We talked for a while on FB before meeting. He decides to come to my work for my lunch break. I was working third shift at the time, so this was at like 3 AM. I hung out in his car in complete silence while he played on his phone. Then he started to show me pictures of real dead bodies on his phone. I hopped out of his car so fast. That was my first and last Tinder date. I matched with a guy I went to high school with and who I always thought was really good looking and really cool. Played sports, well liked by everyone, etc. I probably hadn't seen him in 2 years at this point, but in his Tinder pictures he still looked the same. So we agreed to meet up for coffee. He comes in with greasy long hair, a beard, and actually looked homeless, and went on to tell me that he dropped out of college and has severe ADHD now. He couldn't focus on one thing and was fidgeting the entire date. Told me how he's now one with the earth, and at the end of it told me he was gay. I'm a girl. I seriously thought I was being punked. Plenty of fish, but oh well. Telling anyways. She just got out of the hospital and a snap blizzard hit. February 14th. 2014. The bus dropped her off, but no taxi or Uber dared drive out to get her, so she was stranded at the Waffle House. So I took me and my Jeep Grand Cherokee the 100 miles in the snow to meet for the first time and to save her. I made it 90% of the way, hit some black ice, then slid sideways into a power pole. The guy that lived there pulled out his tractor trailer and pulled me off the pole. I continued my journey as the night is shiny. Smashed armor. I make it to the Waffle House and pick her up. Her door doesn't open because it was smashed in. She climbs over from the other side, casually brushing aside bits of broken glass from the shattered window. We proceed to drive 25 minutes in the snow while freezing air, tossing her post-surgery bedhead hair around. We made casual conversation. We get to her house and I get out so she can climb back over my seat to get out. She thanks me and we part ways. Come to find out my truck's frame was bent and should not have been driven. 4 years later we are happily married. Going through IVF to have a daughter. Too long didn't redirect my car to save her in a snowstorm. She acted like it was normal and not. Cold sitting next to a broken window. I married her. Guy attempted to put his hand up my skirt as a way of confirming that was how I had been assaulted on a train a few years prior. Edit to add context below. Because somehow a number of people are seeing this as my own fault. Partially because it would have been a turn off for the date in question. Him: do you drive into work? Me: yep. How about you? In public transport. How come you don't take the train? Me: I'm not a fan of public transport, and besides, I have free parking at work, so it's win-win for me. Him: how come you don't like public transport? Me: a few years ago some douchebag stuck his hand up my skirt when I was getting off the train. So anyway, him: did he do it like this? He then proceeded to put his hand up my skirt while we were sitting down on a park bench and got high enough to touch the gusset of my stockings. Guy kept asking me out for weeks and even called me. We had exchanged numbers eventually to convince me, so I decided to give it a try. We decided to meet at a bar. He got there 30 minutes late and ordered a Coke. Apparently, he was a recovering alcoholic. That's not a problem for me. I just thought it was weird that he had agreed to go to a bar, and then he proceeded to perform on me what felt like a job interview. At some point I even sarcastically asked, "Am I doing okay here?" After 40 minutes of that, he got up, paid for his Coke, and said, "I'm gonna go. I have to get up early tomorrow," and left. We haven't talked since. The weirdest one was probably going out with this dentist guy. We were in a cafe. He then asked to see my teeth and questioned about my oral hygiene. I have pretty good teeth according to him, but that was weird. I had been on a few dates with a guy I met on Tinder, and things seemed to be going really well. We had common interests. He was funny, smart, attractive and incredibly kind. One evening he invited me over to his house. We had always had public dates beforehand and I agreed. The night started out great. He cooked dinner, we watched a movie, and things started to lead towards the bedroom. Before we got there, he asked if he could show me his favorite room in the house. Somewhat confused, I agreed. He opened a door beside his bedroom, and we walked into a baby nursery. Not just any nursery, a nursery with an adult-sized crib, changing table, diapers, etc. He told me that he was into baby role-playing and would be very happy if I would agree to be his mommy. I'm a very open-minded person, but that's not something I would be able to do for him, and politely excused myself. He messaged me the next day, asking if I would reconsider, and I once again politely told him that we could no longer see each other. Went to a local cafe. Date went well until she flipped the crazy switch. She started inquiring when we would get an apartment together, as well as have children. Also, how many children we would have. She ended up messaging every day, multiple times a day, wondering why I didn't want to talk to her. I ended up calling her and just telling her it wasn't going to work. She flipped and told me our relationship was built in lies and she was breaking up with me. We went on one date. I noticed a cute French girl. In her bio she mentioned there were some tadpoles in a pothole by her house that she wanted to rescue. I never know what to start off with, so I figured this would be a good conversation starter. I ended up bringing a ladle, a spoon with holes in it, and we fished a few out of the pothole, put them in a jar, and brought them to a nearby pond. The rest of this first and last date was super awkward, but hey, at least we rescued some tadpoles. While talking before the date he explained that he doesn't drink or smoke or do any hard drugs. While on the date he tells me he is going to drop acid tomorrow. When I brought up what he previously said, he argued with me about how sugar is more of a drug than acid. Sure buddy. We were at a soccer game and he became aggressive and started making weird grunting noises. The worst part, I overheard the people behind us say, "Oh look, these two are on a first date. It's not going well. Do you see how uncomfortable she looks?" Hilarious now but painfully awkward at the time. Turns out she was just broke and really wanted a free meal. I found out almost instantly when she devoured almost every roll of Red Lobster in like 2 minutes. I called her back. My mom and I were traveling through Maine on a vacation for a few days. I had Tinder downloaded just for fun to see what guys were like out there. I matched with one, and he was so incredibly sweet and charming. We had the same sense of humor, and the connection and chemistry just felt so right. However, again, my mom and I were traveling in the same car together, and it was just the two of us. So it wasn't like I could ditch her to go on a date with some random guy. I told him this. We came up with an idea. We made up a story where he was an old friend from college that moved to Maine. My mom joined us on the date, which was pretty much just all of us going out for lunch at this cute soup place in Portland, Kamasutra at the public market. He brought his dog along, and he was just the absolutely nicest person. He surprised my mom with a bag of potato donuts. We all had a genuinely great time, and it was surprisingly not awkward. He gave me a little envelope at the end of the date and told me to open it when I got home. When I opened it, it was little pins from different popular spots in Portland, and he typed up a word search puzzle made up of words related to how we met, that is Tinder, his dog's name, etc. It was probably the coolest date I've probably ever been on. When my mom and I left, she was like, "Why didn't you guys ever date?" I said that we had always just been friends lol. And she went on and on about how that's the kind of guy I should be with. He and I talked about meeting up again, but it never really panned out due to distance, and then he moved somewhere else. I still have a picture of the two of us and his dog from that lunch date, and we look cute as heck in it. Agree to meet at her place, just your average Netflix and chill date. I was in my mid-20s and she was early 30s with one kid. Just gorgeous blue-eyed blonde. She lets me in the front door and there's about a 40-year-old man just sitting in a recliner and her son was just sitting on the couch and they were watching TV. She grabs my hands and takes me down to the basement. Obviously just anxiety to the duck in 9 feet, like what is going on? That is her husband and she can just duck who she wants apparently. So we go at it while her hubs and son watch TV. She was being obnoxiously loud. Great sex but super awkward, especially leaving. Made eye contact with the dude on the way out. He looked just dead in the eyes, like a defeated look. Never went back. What the duck? At least he didn't want to watch. I know the feeling of going to a chick's house you only just met and don't want to be rude when there are family members or like dirty clothes and stuff. But an actual kid and husband upstairs while you are smashing away. I would have done the same though. Great sex is always with the crazy ones. We had met briefly before, and she stopped by my house before we went out to eat, as she apparently lived close by. We spoke for like 90 seconds then she asked to use my bathroom. She must have been in there for an hour. I knocked to see if she was okay, and she didn't answer. After a while I knocked again, a little worried that she'd fainted in my bathroom or something. After like 5 or 10 minutes of knocking on the door and her not replying, I was getting worried. I had sudden fear that she was deaf or something and hadn't told me and couldn't hear me. So I tried to call her phone and I would hear it ring once inside and vibrate, then get muted. I was very confused and worried, but I could still sort of hear her moving around on the other side of the door. I was at that point even saying stuff like, look, if something embarrassing has happened in there, just don't worry about it. Just let me know you're okay, and I'll pass you in whatever you need. Just no reply. I started opening the door from the outside with a screwdriver, panicking, and just as I got the door open, she just quietly said occupied, like you might say in a public bathroom. I opened the door, and she was standing in front of the mirror, doing something with her makeup, but didn't seem to be actually wearing any makeup, having been in the bathroom for like an hour. I was like, what the heck? And she was just like, are we late for dinner? Edit. Wow. This one sure got lots of replies. There's no exciting ending to the story. She wouldn't explain why she was acting so weird, and we'd literally just met. So I noped out of that whole situation and kicked her out. Sometime later, I happened to be talking to a friend who is a cop about it, and his instinct was that it might have been some sort of setup for a robbery. That is, she left the doors jammed open for others to follow her in, or at least she was scoping the place out and something went wrong. For example, her accomplices never showed, or she chickened out. About 10 minutes in, she karate chopped a child and then spent the rest of the date holding her blouse closed because one of the buttons had come off. 2 years later, we're about to buy a house together.